Hello, I'm Robert, fact checker and science blogger. I'll start with some good news. So this is Italy, which for the first time it's really showing signs that it's past its peak. It could have passed its peak already. So if you look, I've been watching this for some time. If you look at this as a mathematician, you look at the percentage increase. So for that week, the percentage increase per day was between 20 and 63%. And 458% for the whole week. But that's the very beginning, so you expect to find lots of cases. So that's maybe not so obvious, not so strong a signal. But now you've got 23% to 27%, and it's still going down. And now 11% to 23%, and now it's going down to 8% to 15%, and the last few days especially. So look at these percentages. Let's look at it, let's close it so you can zoom in on them. So you've got just look how these numbers are going down. Right at the beginning, well, Passback was just finding lots and lots of cases because they hadn't found them yet. But now you've got 50%, 20%. You can see the numbers are just going down all the time. General trend is down, and it's gone down to 8% in the last day. This is very, very promising for Italy. And then you can see this figure, it's gone up, and then you get little peaks like that for a few days. You get just with irregularity. But this is beginning to look really distinctive. It's gone down for 2 whole days by a significant amount. That is less than it was 5 days ago, the number of cases today. It really, really looks as if Italy may have peaked. And if it has, and this is about the right time, because the control measures it brought on the 11th of March. So if you go look at that, the control measures hitting on the 11th of March, and this would be the 21st of March, and it took 22nd of March, so that's 10 days. And with Wuhan, it took 9 days from the lockdown. So very, very similar, and especially when you bear in mind that they had to increase it a little bit, they had to get used to it, and they had to ramp up and get everyone on board. It's a very new thing for them. And then here in the video, this is the Franco Locatelli or whatever, president of the Health Council. He said we expect to see, so this is the worldometer's summary of what he said, and then this is what he actually said in more detail. So he's expecting that starting from tomorrow, he's expecting this is just the right time, as I said, compared with Wuhan, just the right time to expect to see it going down. And now this probably means that it peaked. So in Wuhan, that's when they started the shutdown, and then went up for another couple of days, then immediately started coming down. Now this is the symptom onset. So it takes 3 days from when you're infected. Half the patients will show symptoms within 3 days of being infected. So it's no surprise that the symptoms, number of people with symptoms starts going down 3 days after you do the big control measure. However, you don't know what this state is until long after, because it's not been diagnosed yet. So someone's just feeling a little bit, oh, I feel awful, or they start to get a slight cough, or they get a little bit of a fever. Then back in those days, then they still wasn't so keyed up as they are now in China, and so 3 days later they get the symptom onset. It was about another 6 days after that, and so 6 or 7 days after that before they got the diagnosis, because only towards the end of the first week that they start feeling really quite ill. Then they tell people that they're ill, then they get the diagnosis, and then they're told they're COVID-19, and then once you've got diagnosis here, you can then go back and say, oh, that patient actually got it then. I actually got the symptoms started then by asking them. So you always get this delay. And China has now brought it down so that half of the people who get symptoms will they're really trained to go in straight away to their special places to get tested for COVID-19 as soon as they have symptoms. So they had their first local transmission for a long time yesterday, which was not from someone within Wuhan, it was from someone outside, within China, someone outside China, who infected someone in China. And this person in China, they were diagnosed within 4 days, 4 days later. So 4 days after the infection, after these people came into the, was it 4 days? 4 days after their symptoms started, they got their diagnosis, and they said, "Oh yes, this chap is got COVID-19." So they've really cut it down. It was 6 days, 9 days, or 6 or 7 days. Now it's down to 4 days. So you've got these two things. You've got the 3 days until the symptoms onset, and then you've got the days until diagnosis, which China's brought down to a median of 3. So if they'd done both of that, they'd have seen the peak by then, and be coming down then. But instead, they saw the peak then 9 days later. So Italy has probably not managed that very fast diagnosis, educating people to get diagnosed very, very quickly. So chances are that they peaked way back on the 11th as well. That would make sense. So they probably peaked the infections on the 11th, probably peaked the diagnoses on about the 15th, and then peaked the symptom onset. So they would have peaked the infections straight away. As soon as you put in the control measures, you're immediately stopping infections. So infections per day are going to go down right away when you do these big measures. But then 4 days later, 3 days later, is when the symptom onset peaks, because people were infected 3 days previously. And then 9 days later after that is when the diagnoses peak, because the people are being diagnosed who got the symptoms 6 days before and who were infected 9 days before, on average. With, of course, a lot of variation, some less and some more, and some won't be diagnosed for some won't get it for up to a fortnight, and then they might not be diagnosed for up another week. So there'll be people who were infected back then at the time of the peak infections who won't be diagnosed until 3 weeks later. But sufficient, about half of them would probably be diagnosed about 9 days afterwards. So that's enough for it to start peaking. So it probably peaked around then. But we're only just noticing now. And their health minister, president of the health council, and he's saying that they've absolutely got to keep on doing what they're doing, of being very careful and doing all the contact tracing, all the quarantine, keeping your isolation if you're asked to isolate in Italy, and they'll be able to go right back down again. There's no reason at all why they can't just go all the way back down again and get rid of it, just like they did in Wuhan. With this one, they're going to do the same. So that is really good news. So I thought I'd share this, and I'm going to talk now. My next 2 videos, I'm going to talk about how the deaths if you look at the ratio of the deaths to the recovered, you get a very, very misleading view of what's going on. So I keep getting people saying, "Oh, I'm in the United States and we've got more people died than have recovered, and this is looking really, really bad. We must have a much, much worse version." It's not. It's the same virus, and you've got decent healthcare in the United States, and you can expect to have the same results about the number who recover as everyone else in the world. So I'm going to explain that in the next video. Then after that, I'm going to talk about Boris Johnson and the weird things that are going on in the United Kingdom, and just hope we can I hope this Italy data can eventually get them to realise that they shouldn't listen to their own advisors. The advisors in the United Kingdom are giving really stupid advice based on a fictional disease which is not COVID-19. So I'm going to talk about that in another talk. And then I do hope that they start following the WHO recommendations. And we really must bring a lot of pressure to bear on our government in the United Kingdom to listen to the WHO recommendations like everyone else. So that's my next 2 videos.